Yep. And if I lean back,
See, all of a sudden, there it is, right? Now, all of a sudden, I'm warm again. Look at that. It's weird.
yeah. And then the sun is hitting the tile on the floor and just ricocheting right onto my face.
Yeah.
So I got to really.
If you lean in, you're fine.
If I lay down, I'll just progressively be leaning back for the next hour until it goes away. Well, okay.
I'm ready. Button. If you're ready.
Yeah. Cool.
Sweet. So when we last talked, I went into detail about my childhood and kind of where I came from and how I got to where I am when it comes to this story of the BLT.
Mm-hmm.
Grant, we need to hear your story, though, if we're going to get anywhere in this grand journey.
The journey through the BLT, yes. So,
why don't we start from where it all began?
Yes. Well, I should start by saying I'm on the letter A, the Anglican side of this BLT theological sociological sandwich, just like you, Brent. But it was not always that way. I was raised going to different kinds of Baptist churches. So I was born in California. A lot of my extended family is still out there, and was living in a suburb called Pomona, which is east of LA by like 40-ish minutes. And there's this big church over there that my mom actually, that was her church that she had grown up going to when it was an Assemblies of God church when she was a kid. She's where I learned the term aisle runners, which is not referring to that nice like center tablecloth you put on your table. Not that kind of a runner, like an actual like falling out, slain in the spirit, running up and down the aisle. So her background was more Pentecostal, fundy a little bit as a kid, but that church itself, they kind of adapted with the way that modern church culture was moving. You know, they're in Southern California. They're going to be on the edge of whatever is going on, literally in any category ever, as California always is. And they slowly became more of the like mega church, seeker sensitive, cultural engagement type church, to use some Aaron Wren negative world language there. And they were huge. I mean, it was just normal for me, for church, to just go inside this auditorium of a sanctuary. That was a normal experience when I was a 4, 5, 6-year-old. We technically were living in Central California, in the Central Valley, until I was like 3 or 4. And then we moved back down to the SoCal area to be closer to family. And I did Awana, just like you said. Awana goes hard. 2 Timothy 2:15, man. And did the whole thing. Cubbies, Sparkies, TNT. It's essentially a form of catechism for children.
Like, did you do the whole thing as in, like, did you do all of the memorization? The full 9 yards, or?
I didn't do like the extra credit stuff a whole lot. If I did, it was just to get Awana bucks. So
sure.
I'm not.
But you got all your pins. You got all the.
I got some pins.
Yeah. All the core, all the core stuff, right?
Yeah. It's funny.
You were a good student. Right?
I was. The Awana meritocracy is interesting. But as far as like the uniforms and the colors go, the Sparkies era has the best stuff.
Yeah, I always
climber, hiker, all the different stages. There's like 3 stages, and you graduate to the next one when you go through your books.
Sparkies seemed like the most like well thought out, well filled out portion of it.
Yeah.
TNT, Truth and Training, is that what that stood for?
Truth and Training. Yep. TNT.
Yeah. That was
so that the word of God can be like dynamite in your soul.
When I was in that program, it felt like it was like slightly changing right as I was in it. And so we had like the old style, and then like a year in, it completely changed, and like all of the
New
structure completely
books.
changed. New books,
I
new look,
remember I remember
new
when
everything.
the publishing company in Carroll Stream, Illinois, because my lowercase a autistic self noticed stuff like that in the back of the book. Um, More on that later. Which is essentially Wheaton. Carroll Stream is right next to Wheaton. So
Mm.
whatever publishing company is out there, I forgot the name. They did all those books. They did a whole new like reanimation of the characters, and so I remember that. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
Awana,
Sorry, go ahead, continue.
it's okay. Awana was great. It provided just some nice predictability in my schedule during the week, which is something that I kind of needed at the time. Transition. Uh, I was expelled from kindergarten, and I
Wow,
should tell you why. Yeah,
troublemaker.
yeah. Uh, and all other forms of gardening, actually. Oh, I just dropped my pen. So, right after we moved to Southern California, I was going to a preschool probably a mile down the road from where we lived. Life, it used to be called Life Center Christian. It's not called that anymore. I was very fidgety, couldn't pay attention. All of the like stereotypes of a 4-year-old a boy that just immediately gets, typed with some kind of attention deficit, whatever, right? Which like,
ADHD, ADD, something.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, those letters were never used in that order around me. But who
sure.
knows if those conversations were happening behind closed doors with adults. Um,
Yeah.
and it wasn't just the attention. It was like my response to that was acting out and like essentially bullying the other children, which everybody is I tell this story to finds it so hard to believe because of my mostly agreeable demeanor. So um, there was a point at which like I pushed a girl off of a swing, I was screaming and crying and fighting with the teacher or um,
Wow.
being sent to the corner and told to stay in the corner. We would have nap time in preschool where we had to bring home our little mats from home. I don't know whose idea that was to try and do mass nap time in the same room with a bunch of kids with no partitions, nothing. Like, there's no environmental suggestions that this is indeed nap time, other than the fact that you're just saying it is. There's no bed, there's no bedroom. Like, the context for nap time is not there. So why am I going to think this is nap time? Anyway, it got to a point where it was too much to deal with. So I switched schools. I went to a Montessori school in San Dimas, California. I had a Pakistani teacher. I don't remember her name, but she actually liked me. She actually saw past whatever the behavioral stuff was. Um, Meanwhile, I had also already taught myself how to read. I taught myself how to read when I was 4. Um, Safe to say, school was just kind of boring for me, and it wasn't really at my speed. And I had some behavioral stuff going on. So between my mom's very very good friend from church, Miss Connie, shout out to Miss Connie. Uh, she was like, "Hey, we homeschool our kids. They love it. It's individualized learning at their own pace. We are in a co-op. Have you ever considered that?" Um, We also go to this chiropractor who does, nutritional supplements on the side. Have you ever wondered if this is a nutrition issue? And she's like the nicest person in the whole world. So none of this it didn't have your like essential oils conspiracy theory energy that like the meme version of that today gets. This was 20 years ago. Um, so my mom, uh, I don't remember like which happened before or after which part here, but around all the same time, roughly, after kindergarten, during kindergarten, I get expelled for my behavior. I get some nutritional supplements from this chiropractor. Within, and this is what my mom has told me, within a couple weeks, I was a completely different kid. The behavioral problems
Wow.
basically subsided. So like, and I remember telling my mom, and my mom remembers me telling her, I don't want to do these things, but I don't feel like I have a sense of control over them. So I didn't have the right like amino acids to actually digest the food I was eating. That's what we found out. So of course I'm gonna, deal with that pain and that nutritional
What
deficiency with
what
acting out.
year was this?
This was 2005. This was 2005-ish. Yeah.
That's like that's some that's some groundbreaking stuff at that point. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, now it's a very common thing um, among like holistic, uh, like medical care and things. But
Yeah.
I mean, in 2005, that would have been a big deal. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct. And I mean, that was a bit of a red pill moment for my mom too, just her view towards like what actually fixes health problems. Um, and that set a big trajectory for kind of how our family dealt with that, with how we sought out health remedies for other things later on in life that have also proved helpful to us, whatever. You could the 2025 word for it now would be somewhere on the crunchy spectrum, but
Yep.
um, I'm not like full send. I I'm not like subscribing to a holistic doctor email list, and I'm not like following people on X who are telling me I should you know suck all the parasites out of my body if I take this one pill thing, stuff like that. But I have other family members
Well,
that do.
you are
So
now doing a podcast. You are now doing a podcast with a friend who is somewhat running down that rabbit hole. So I'm sure that will
well,
come up again.
it
But
probably will.
there you go.
Yeah, no, my
Um,
I have family members who are
let's
running down
let's
that,
get
and
you
I'm
back
letting,
on track.
yeah. So that set the stage for me to actually begin homeschooling. Like,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for that kind of crash and burn and then remedy, my mom had essentially already resolved that homeschooling, she ought to just give it a shot with me because of all this stuff. So that was the context going into homeschooling. So then, uh, myself and my younger brother started being homeschooled. There's another brother, but he was a baby at the time, so he just kind of got grafted in later on. Uh, but we didn't live much longer in California after that. My mom's dad, my maternal grandpa, he sold real estate for decades and has always had this like sixth sense about the stock market. And several months, maybe a year before the true like palpable real estate crash in '08, he like calls my mom in a panic, and he never does. He's very even keel. He's never neurotic in that way. And he's like, I don't care where you go, you guys just need to sell your house. Like something's gonna happen. I don't know what, but something's gonna not be good with the market. So we sold our house in Pomona in 2007, and we moved to the greater Salem, Oregon area. We were technically like in a little town outside for a few months renting before we found something we wanted to buy, and then we bought in like the spring of '08. So we came out on the good side during that time because of my grandpa's, crazy advice, which was so helpful. So then I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I consider the Pacific Northwest my home. Salem was
Which is something we have in common.
which is
Yep.
something we have in common. We've lived in the capital
Of the many
city
things.
of our states. We were both homeschooled, both went to a relatively Baptist-ish context of church. So, of course, now that we're in Oregon, we're essentially seeking out where do we go to church, and our criteria, I guess, would have been similar to where we had left, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, there wasn't going to be a church as big because it wasn't as big of a metro area, but that necessarily wasn't like the biggest thing we were looking for. Um, there was a non-denominational church that was like little M mega church. We went there for a minute, but we were going to an Awana program at the Baptist church downtown. And that was where my brothers and I were making our friends. And there was a homeschool co-op that met there. So after a year of going to church at this one place a mile across downtown and Awana at the Baptist church, eventually was decided, okay, let's just go and do everything at the Baptist church, including weekend services. So there was that. And that we started going there in 2010. So from 2010 to 2017, this is where I'm growing up. This is where I'm going to church. This, I did Awana and probably only for one more year, but I was then the youth group thing happened. The phenomenon of the big church youth group. So middle school sucks for everyone in different ways. And with me being homeschooled, joining Boy Scouts and church youth group was my window into public school kids and what they said and what they did and what their lives were like. And I was kind of getting that from these outer sources at these non-school events. So that was my kind of social integration in middle school. So everyone in middle school just started hugging. Like, why? Uh, that was a big thing. I noticed that was very different socially. It's like, why are we all just like hugging each other now? I didn't ask for this. Um, Not that I had anything categorically against that in all contexts, but it was like I'm not comfortable just like hugging every random girl I see. But everybody thought that was fine. So I also that that was that was also symptomatic of also just being in an environment where there wasn't going to be people that liberal and that free and that open. Like I just wasn't in any context like that that was like that growing up. Everything kind of had its set patterns and nothing too crazy.
Sure, going from a very structured environment, very structured way of being to, opening that up a little bit. Yeah.
Right, which technically that is true for everybody, but I feel like there were a lot of kids I was becoming friends with where they had already kind of been on that trajectory already, but I didn't know how to square that with the more simple black and white life in these, other little enclaves and cloistered groups I would have been hanging out with. And then middle school is over. I'm going into high school. I start going to the high school youth group. The high school youth group, the kids are checked out. Like, and there wasn't a lot being done to remediate that, at least at the time. So this is fall of 2013 going into spring of 2014. What happened at the same time is my family then joined an actual homeschool co-op that met once a week for their classes. We hadn't done that yet. We had just been in like a group that did like park day and gym day and paint day and all those things, parallel economy type stuff. So that was good. I really enjoyed being in the class context, for the first time and be like, okay, I can do this. I know what the rhythm and the self-discipline that is required to do this. Not that I don't have that when I just do things at home, but like you're getting into harder classes, you're getting into stuff that you're learning how to learn at a much higher level, and that's just that time of life when that happens.
Yeah.
So, and that homeschool co-op was awesome. Like teachers were great, classes were great. Finding, finding the culture of homeschooling that I was in and how much I had already been a part of the markers that identify that without knowing what those were yet or being able to name them, and then be like, ah, yes, that's me. You know, that was nice, from an identity perspective. And then, Boy Scouts was this other world I was living in that was getting less squirrely and just more about like, you know, doing merit badges and going camping and serving leadership positions and whatever. Getting a chance to be viewed as an authority figure by 11 and 12-year-olds that were not my younger siblings. um, Not that they viewed me as an authority figure, I'll tell you that. So that was a nice setup. Now, in the background of all of this going on, in terms of what my family was like at home, um, unfortunately, uh, my mom is amazing. Everybody who has met her and knows her knows how amazing she is. And it's very good that she was, because I had a dad who was very emotionally and verbally abusive at times. And I was living in a home environment that was kind of a walk on eggshells home environment, and I developed a pretty timid personality overall, and played things very safe. And that, of course, affected how I lived life in other contexts that were getting me out of my comfort zone, and how did I manage that? Um, and I probably wasn't managing that very well, because there were age appropriate steps of maturity in school, in friend groups, and other events where it was calling me to uh, get those street smarts in a way, but that didn't
Yeah.
really come until probably sophomore, junior, senior year of high school. But it came, and I'm glad it came. Um, and the older me and my brothers got, the more uh, that my dad's like facade was kind of apparent to all of us, and the fact that it was apparent to us was very much apparent to him. Um, and he essentially, now, sleeping in separate bedrooms, not going to church anymore. There was a bit of a little wake up moment there when I was about 13 or 14. I was like, okay, this is, I'm getting out of the whatever shell, whatever idea of togetherness might be there at all, even if it's, held but by a string. It was really only there until I could deal without it. So then there were some science classes I took in high school that were, I thought, gosh, science, I know nothing about that. I'm gonna suck at this. Then I was like doing quite well in those classes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like amazing. So I've started to have this like intellectual confidence thing go on. And then I had this social confidence thing go on. I started going to English country dancing,
Woo!
ECD.
Oh
Not
yeah,
not to be
that's a big thing
yeah.
among a lot of like the homeschool circles.
Yep. You
We
man.
we had a
Oh,
big contingent up north too.
we had man, homeschools are so weird. I met so many of my friends through ECD, not to be confused with EDC, which is a like Euro rave festival that's like modern day Woodstock. Um, so there was a family that went there that where they thought Christmas was pagan, so they didn't celebrate it. There was uh, there was another family there. They were Romanian, so that was cool. I went to a Slavic service with them one time. There was a family that had like 8 kids, but the eighth kid was a surprise, and there's like a 12-year age gap, and the first
Whoa.
7 kids are all teenagers, so they're like parading their like little baby brother around everywhere, and he's like super cute. They're
That almost
my
sounds like a friend of mine. I wonder if it ends up being that person, but I don't
did
know.
you
It's weird.
go to did you go to Teen Pact?
Uh, I never did. I had a lot of friends who did.
Did you go to Worldview Academy?
No.
Did you go to Christian Youth in Action, which is like 5-day Bible club training?
No, but all of these are so incredibly familiar.
Yeah, so literally all those things I mentioned. So, I mean, just to give people some perspective if they don't know anything about the Northwest, Oregon is not a very populous state. It's only got about 4 million people in it. And if you're from Oregon, there's like an over 80% chance you're from one of 3 metro areas: Portland, Salem, Eugene.
Yep.
And Eugene and Portland are only like an hour 30, hour 45 apart, and they're all in the I-5 corridor. So like you're already in like this niche minority Christian homeschoolers that are also probably conservative to some extent. So that's another added, let's play the
Well, and
intersectionality
in many
game.
ways too, you can add like what the Washington's
Yeah. Oh yeah,
bit to
you're
this
all
as
there.
well, because like once you incorporate like speech and debate and other
Oh yeah.
organizations, like the whole region is interconnected in some way.
Yeah.
And like the circles that I was in with classical conversations, I mean the group gets small.
Yep.
I was connected with CC groups. I mean, I was being toted around
Right.
both or like both
Toted.
Washington and Oregon, kind of just being like brought around to show like, hey, this program works. Poof.
Right.
And I mean, I went to multiple practicums in Portland. We went down to one in Salem. We had numerous things that we did in Eastern Washington, like out in Spokane. But like
Yeah.
this area, if you're homeschooled and you're like a reasonably large family, odds are people know who you are.
Everyone thinks that like the Keep Portland weird vibe is isolated to a particular end of the ideological spectrum. It's not. It's not at all. There is, I've had so many conversations about this with friends of mine that grew up there with me or know people there about like there's still this like pioneering militant vibe and spirit amongst the Christian homeschoolers of the Willamette Valley at that time, and the Salem Area Christian Homeschool Network, abbreviated as SACHISN. Um, I knew the family that ran that entire program. Um, all of them were just like little Ben Shapiros, like would talk your head off
So true.
about everything, and it was
So
like,
true.
why? That's how is that like attracting people to this thing? But then again,
The speech and debate corner of this region, like I mean, you nailed it right there.
yep,
It's they talk fast,
yes,
they get their points across, and it's just like just a truth bomb,
yeah.
just
So
boom,
like
everywhere.
when you're
It's
all
interesting.
when your whole identity and like meaning in your family is based on all of these things that you're like fighting for and you're against, that just sounds like chaos and like distress to me. Like my family, we have our little stupid hills we die on sometimes, and our singulates and our brain and our little obsessiveness gets the better of us sometimes, but it was nothing compared to like this clearly like team effort of like everyone in the like 8, 9 kids, right? You've got this whole thing. Um, was it influenced by maybe a little bit of just a pinch of quiverful movement, Duggar thing? Maybe. I think that's an entirely different context that also you have to factor in like Southern culture with that, and just Gothard is not the same as the Harrises. But
Hmm.
the Harris family, Greg and Sono Harris, Joshua Harris, Alex, Brett, but mainly Josh, they are the like homeschooling pioneers of the Pacific Northwest from a cultural standpoint. You've got I Kiss Dating Goodbye, Do Hard Things. Do Hard Things was bought for me in middle school as like a book to is like,
Oh yeah,
hey,
we had a whole like reading club that was built around it. Yep.
yeah, yep, yep. Uh, our men's Bible study at church, which was ran by the dad of this Ben Shapiro family, um, BSF, Ben Shapiro Family Bible Study Fellowship.
Oh
Um,
dear.
the he had us watch Ken Ham videos, Answers in Genesis stuff.
Oh
So
yeah.
like we had to have our young Earth creation arguments ready. So like it's funny how all of these things just like went lockstep together, and like I really am so happy that I went to college and learned how to like see complexity. There just wasn't a
Well,
lot of
but I mean, tell me what you think about this too, though, because like, I don't know, for myself, I actually found it really grounding, right? I grew up in an environment that gave me a clear understanding of the world,
Yep.
right? And then that allowed me to go off and kind of start with the foundation and work with it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I don't know how I would have responded if I just started off with so many different ideas being thrown at me, right?
Yeah.
Um, and there's something really grounding and I think really healthy about building a framework. And then, I mean, it's one of the things that, like, Jordan Peterson talks about, like, kind of you need to have a home to come back to,
Yeah.
right? But you always do need to be reaching out into the chaos or reaching out into the unknown and, like, forging something new and seeing for yourself what else actually could be,
Yes.
right? And so, yeah, I don't know, like, as a kid, I think for me it was so important, kind of in the way that, I mean, I guess I don't even have to kind of imagine what it could be like. I mean, we see so many kids having identity crises
Yeah.
today where they just don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
And that's something that I just never ever dealt with because my identity was so clearly, like, framed. And that was extremely helpful. And that doesn't mean I don't, like, have the opportunities to later on in life kind of rethink and reevaluate and rebuild certain things.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have a clear identity to start with, oh man, that would just be so disorienting. And I can't imagine. I don't know what you think
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Yep. No, that I I didn't really know how to handle gray stuff from a intellectual or emotional level in a at least like decently good way, um, until I was at least like senior in high school because
Sure.
I I I, I do, and then this is because this is what people have told me. These aren't my own words, but um, all the adults I was around growing up were like, "Oh man, like you're so well behaved, like you're so, respectful. Um, you have no problem like talking, to me about stuff that other kids would just think is boring. Um, and then but I also have this great need for like friends, right? So like I had a really hard time finding friends I wanted to be friends with because they were all just emotionally all over the place, and I wanted to like empathize with them, but I feel like I could only do that so much because I'm like why are you this distraught? And like I didn't feel like I could have permission really to give attention to my own um, just emotional distraughtness because of my home life, until my dad moved out in the spring of 2016. I had just finished my junior year of high school, um, and then for the first time, I felt like I had some breathing room, like I wasn't like underwater with all that from a psychological standpoint and a confidence standpoint and being able to handle fear and all these other things. Um, so senior year was really when that started to shift for me. And, I was college searching at that time. I was doing dual credit stuff at Corbin University. All my friends, that's where they ended up. That was just like the default option to go, if not Chemeketa Community College. And there was a lot of not good stuff going on at our church at the exact same time, and it was all due to my dad moving out, which was 100% his decision. We had asked him to, and he did it. He could have not done it, but he made the choice to do it. We were actually kind of surprised. Um, but there were some very like fundy, just jacked out priority people when it came to their philosophy on marriage and family. Uh, they thought the institution of marriage was more important than the sanity of the people in it. There were just a lot of good Baptists that we knew who saw the situation and were like, that's not right. Shouldn't, why shouldn't you guys still be in the same house? Like, isn't it better if he's still around? Which, like, from my perspective, I'm like, no. Like, what do you not get about that? But me as a 17-year-old minor, how confident can I be in that opinion when the adults around me are like contradicting that, but they don't know? So this is the real beginning of this very, very disappointed, crestfallen, jaded um, state I got into for the following year or two after that regarding authority. Um, I've always been someone who really appreciates having direction from someone who I can trust, who knows more than me, who gives a sense of security, especially because I've been so used to an emotionally insecure household growing up. And the people at church, your pastor, your senior pastor, like the other people who do ministry at your church with you in music, on the worship team, like uh, there were a couple people who kind of literally banded together. Um, and, this is a word that Baptists don't use for ecclesial reasons, but essentially kind of excommunicated my mom, which made like insult to injury like so much worse. It's like we just got a chance to breathe from the situation, and now you're gonna, put the
Mhm.
car in reverse and go back over. Like there was an article that had come out at that time by well-known Christian author named Gary Thomas. He had a blog. He had a blog entry in 2016 called "Enough is Enough," which was essentially calling out people in the church for enabling abusive men. Um, and the comments on that blog were just so many women and other people came out of the woodwork and were like, yes, thank you. Like, I don't want to conflate that kind of a, conversation and reaction to a blog post like that with any kind of like victim culture mentality, because these are true situations of people who, as Christians, want to keep things together, and are being told God doesn't like it when you don't keep things together, but they're not being.
Sure, there's a healthy way of responding to broken relationships, and
Yes,
the
and I
church, particularly the much of the Protestant, Reformed, and Baptist backgrounds, have really struggled with how to do that well, I think.
yeah, and I mean, after all of that, I'm still like generally complementarian. Like I I'm glad that a lot of those experiences at that church didn't make me throw them out completely. Like, to your point about having a stable base of teaching and people and a view of the world that worked for me in high school, that was still good. And I think I can honestly and fairly evaluate that in hindsight. But that whole
Well,
experience
and
is,
and your mom was and is like incredible. She's done such an amazing job with you boys particularly, which is a testament both to her patience and to her grit, you could
yeah.
say, in that.
Well, and part of the flack she received was due to those people not understanding, like, if you didn't like this, wouldn't you have left a long time ago?
Hmm.
Why are you still here? But that's the nature of like true gaslighting, is you start to just not know your own mind and know your own self to actually get out, especially when you're surrounded by these people who don't understand abuse telling you, no, you should stay. So anyway, we that essentially drove us out of our church. This old lady who still goes to that church, who is still a wonderful, basically honorary grandmother to us, um, who watched that whole thing happen, she was like, God essentially gave you the gift of being able to get out of there. That was her way of kind of helping us deal with that. Um, my one like really like hippie friend in high school, like actually a hippie personality, like kind of actually did drugs, like that I knew through a friend of a friend, but we got along a lot. He was a good friend at the time. He introduced me to a lot of good music, which I still listen to. And one of the lines that he wrote in my yearbook freshman year was these lyrics from a Vampire Weekend song. No one is gonna watch you as you go from a house you didn't build and can't control. And it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, you're just doing the like profound lyric thing, and I don't get this, and this is a throwaway line, and I don't know why you wrote this in my book. Um, that line proved to be incredibly prophetic, and I had no idea. Um, that like we left Salem, nobody followed us, nobody chased us, nobody asked about us. No, nobody pursued, and that was fine.
Wow.
That was fine. We sold our house in 2017. By that point, I had already said I was going to go to George Fox, which was only 45 minutes north of Salem. It was like the perfect distance. It was like just enough out of Salem that we didn't feel like we were in the same orbit of those people at our church, or frankly, in the same orbit as my dad. Um,
It's kind of its own microcosm too. So
yeah, but it wasn't so far away that it felt like it was this giant switch. And we did actually move to Newberg. Like we sold our house, moved to Newberg, and I started college. Like literally the week I started college, my family moved into a rental house out there. It was crazy timing. It was very much a providential thing. It was like buzzer beater. My mom and my two younger brothers. Um, and then we didn't go to we didn't attend regularly any church anywhere. In the meantime, we were listening to sermons by our beloved Scottish minister of Cleveland, Ohio, Alistair Begg, at Parkside Church. Alistair Begg was a big um, piece of solace for us for a couple of years. Just really enjoying his sermons and his exposition. He's a pastor who is kind of a dying breed in terms of pastors, where he's actually doing expository preaching. Um, so we had him, but like, I'm getting to the point now in college where I'm in the William Penn honors program, which I will now get into that. Um, and we're reading about early church history, and
our worlds
our
collide.
worlds collide. Da 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 da. I mean, I literally don't remember like how we initially met. I just know that we started seeing each other and hanging out more near the end of my sophomore year, because that's when you graduated. But yes, we would have likely passed each other at different points my freshman year. But
I think there was probably quite a bit of that early on.
well, that's kind of what college is. You like see the same 50 people all the time, and then you wait another year
Well,
to ask them their name.
yeah, and at that point too, kind of we were the upperclassmen of the honors program, and so I
Yes.
think there was just a lot of, I mean, as with any like college program like that, you have kind of this situation where, like, oh, the upperclassmen, they're they're so cool, they're so with it, and like there's a lot of attention that's like placed on them by the freshman crew, and we just kind of like when you
Yeah.
get there, you almost kind of start to embody it yourself, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
wow,
It happened to me too. In the
it's
same
happening
way,
to me.
in the
Yeah.
same way I didn't understand hugging in middle school, I didn't understand underclassmen idolization of faculty and upperclassmen.
Mm-hmm.
I've always,
in many ways, I think it did help with this program, like keeping a culture that, because like people actually looked up to like the culture that was being built at the time, and being almost like it was still a fledgling program at that point.
Year 4.
I mean, I was the second year of the program. You were the fourth year of the program. Like it's
baby program.
Yeah,
we could all fit inside of Hoover 105 for Forum in my freshman year.
Yeah. So I mean, in a way, there's also good aspects to that. Like, I mean, that's literally why you have like God making it an important law to like honor your father and mother.
Sure.
So like honor your ancestors, give attention to those who came before you. But still, like with that kind of around it, I mean, it was a lot of our attention was on each other, and then like you guys were the babies of the program. Whereas
we were
like
actually inheriting something that had already been
and it wasn't until my senior year that I was like, wait, they're just as much of like a human being as I am. Like I had to like smack myself in the face a little bit.
Well,
like
they do some of that for you.
People. Sure.
They actually take down some of that veil for you, and because they want to do that by the time you're an upperclassman.
But I won't lie, like that was definitely like my brain space early on. I think as like a junior, it was a lot of what do you call it? A lot of ego flying around, being entering the upperclassmen world.
Well, and the other thing that really made that a thing was the Pacific Northwest culturally is a very non-deferential culture. Almost all my professors when I first started, they're like, "Oh, call me Joe. Oh, call me."
Well, that's also Fox, right?
That's also Fox.
And
like
and
first
the,
name basis,
and the
please.
Quaker.
I'm like, no.
Like the whole Quaker idea, right? Like really emphasizes being one, kind of being one in the spirit, and this idea that there's call no man father, right? And kind of that idea of where there's no one higher than another when it comes to the call to spread the gospel, the call to be a person in the church. And so like what you're referring to was actually for a long time actually a policy at Fox, I believe.
Oh, what?
Wow. You didn't call professors doctor. You actually would refer to them by their first name. But that like changed not that long beforehand. Don't quote me on that. But I'm pretty sure I had a conversation with one of my professors on that very topic. And so you still had some like holdouts, and who were very intent on not being called doctor in any form or fashion.
Some of the holdouts were the honors faculty. Like they actually said, I know the Fox culture is kind of like this, but if you could please refer to us by our designations, that's what we expect. This will come up again, I'm sure, in a future conversation. Absolutely, on this exact subject. It's probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, running joke in my graduating class of 2021 in the honors program. Our good friend Ethan Whitted, in seminar in class, we're talking about a text, and he's referring to something that the professor said in the room earlier in the class and referred to them by their last name. Ohaneson said this, and then she very promptly turns and says, "Oh, I didn't know we were switching to last names now." And stopped him right in his tracks. And like, we have never forgotten it. It's been this longest running joke because, outside of class, you bet we're referring to our professors by their last name and we're not throwing the doctor part in front of it. So
Yeah.
we would always catch ourselves though. It's like, oh, excuse me, I don't know when we were switching to last names. Like it was a whole meme.
Yeah.
It's a whole meme at that point. Um, like if anyone in our class says that, we know what they're talking about. So, anyways, that was a funny thing. So my family's relatively unchurched at this point. We're doing the church of the internet at this point, which wasn't ideal when we knew it, but we were also pretty gun shy at the thought of getting involved into a real congregation with real people who are going to look at the four of us and say, "Oh, where's your dad?" That some people did do. And it's like,
Yeah. How did that change for you guys?
so that changed um, in part because we stepped out and just tried to see if a church would work despite the potential likelihood that we could get questioned by an otherwise innocent, unknowing, and well-meaning individual.
Was there like a reason for that? Were you guys just like, this
No,
just
it's
wasn't
it's just
working, or?
it's a we just have to explain it all over again, and then we
No,
also
I'm talking like why, like what led you guys to just like all of a sudden make that change?
well, so it wasn't necessarily like a snap decision. We had always wanted to try and get back into a physical church. We had visited some churches in Newberg, um, and then just not really stuck with them. By the way, did you see this?
Yes, I did.
This is a Coffee Cottage T-shirt that I wore specifically for this. RIP Coffee Cottage,
Rest
which is now
in
Lyrics.
peace.
Rest in peace, Coffee Cottage. Um, I had friends from Fox who had been going to the same church that the founder of our program and one of the chief professors in it, Dr. Joseph Clare, had been going to. It was an Anglican church called Church of the Vine that we did. I didn't know about its history at all, like before going there. Like my friends were like, "Yeah, it used to be non-denom, and now it's this." Like I didn't get any of that going into it.
So you guys came after that then, after the
Yes,
name change.
we came in July of 2018.
Okay.
Yep, yep. Father Sean was already in the cassock and the collar and the jeans.
Wow, because um like in my brain space, you guys were there when I first started going.
Well,
Um,
if you went when they
but
changed, you would have already been there for a year.
yeah.
It's just
Wow.
it's been 7 years. So like 1 out of 8 doesn't feel like a big section of that. So
Sure.
um,
Well, and in that way, like I can see where it felt like, yeah, how did we meet
I
exactly?
know because if we were already like ambiently at church and then we were ambiently at school, it's like which came first? I don't know. I
Mhm.
mean, it was probably church, to be honest, that we probably hung out more.
The
We had
most, yeah.
there was always a lunch after church every Sunday where we would sit and rearrange the tables and eat. That was honestly that's probably how we met. It was during one of those lunches.
Oh yeah.
I would say it was probably that more than it was anything at Fox because we
Yeah.
weren't in the same major. We didn't share any classes. We didn't share the same friend groups. It was probably church. So, I mean, Church of the Vine, not even 100 people at the time. Small building. And that felt a little, I mean, you could almost argue that a bigger church is safer in terms of anonymity, but uh, it worked. It was comfortable. I think it was so distracting to do all this, sit up, sit down, set prayers in the service, drink from a common cup, wine every week. Like,
We still
very,
haven't returned to that, by the way.
oh my gosh. You guys still do intinction?
Hmm.
You realize that that's more germaphobe than just, okay, whatever, whatever. Anyway, it complimentary to my experience of reading about church history in the honors program, and it made me really curious. And I even though it was a family decision to kind of go to Church of the Vine, I think I was really the one saying like, "Hey, let's go there." like that's Dr. Claire's church, like my friends are there. Like it was because of my context and my friends and who I knew that we started going there, and then we all, you know, made it our church home. I think my younger brothers had the hardest time adjusting to it initially, but they eventually, as with any new habit you take on, it became normal. Uh, so that Father Mike was there at the time. Remember Father Mike?
Mike
Mike
DiMarcangelo.
DiMarcangelo. Um, he, I remember he did an All Saints Day sermon one time. I don't know why. That's the memory I have that sticks in my head of him when I remember him. But he was great. I really enjoyed talking to him. And he had come from a similar childhood background that I had, and was able to speak into some things in that regard to me that I found very encouraging. But he and his wife and their baby, they actually moved not long after that, and then it was just Father Sean. But that was an excellent place to start getting curious about classical Protestantism. You know, what came before the Baptist world that I grew up in, that really is only going back 100 years and doesn't even feel like that because of the tech that we're using, right? Um, I wanted something that was, a little dusty on the shelf. I didn't realize how much I had this craving for knowing the long, deep standing history of this faith and tradition that I said I was a part of in some way. Um, Now, I never was so like history theology pilled. Like I was never going to do the theological equivalent of a land acknowledgement. Like I wasn't, I'm not going to class and I'm thinking about which tribe was on that land before the school was built. I'm not going to class and learning about Catholicism and thinking, oh man, shoot, I didn't know that this was here before the Protestant Reformation. Shoot. Does that mean I have to be
They did this before
They
us.
did this before me? Oh no, that means I have to maybe do it. Yeah, no, that never. Yeah, every everything was evaluated fairly in that respect. I didn't feel like I was gotcha simply because there was something I didn't know about that had this like. I never felt that Protestantism was trumped. I just felt like I had never really known it for the fullness of what it had to offer. Um, that'll make people like Redeemed Zoomer happy. So, and to be
This
clear,
is good context for me, because for some reason, for the longest time, I thought that you guys had come before the transition, before the
nope.
change. So yeah, this is cool. So because in some ways, right, that's a big deal, because for me, right, I walked through kind of the major transition. For you came in kind of post the huge transition, but you were
Yes.
still part of kind of that slow development of what Church of the Vine became.
Yep.
Like I'm sure, like early on there was still, like, were we still doing once a month, instead of a service we'd have a meal?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then
And then
I don't
Hillside Inn was still a part of the ministry.
Hillside was still running.
Yep. That was a that was a homeless shelter of sorts, essentially.
Yep.
That was right across the street from the church.
Yeah.
And then they stopped using it
Yeah, they
after
sold the
they sold the
property.
property, and then we moved buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2019, fall of
It
2019,
was a really unfortunate timing,
yeah, you
because
had just
that
graduated.
yeah, I had just graduated. Um, we had started out, um, like our congregation was just slightly getting too big for
Yeah,
the current space we were in. And so we had to look for another option, and a church just down this, like 3 blocks down the road, opened up its doors to us.
Yep.
Perfect, kind of a perfect scenario.
We did
we
a
actually did,
processional.
we actually did a procession in the rain across town with a horn section
Yep.
playing away.
I think Tristan Pankey was part of that horn section.
Oh yeah, it was glorious. There was nothing more awkward looking going down the street
We had
on
incense.
a Sunday morning. It was great. There was
Yeah.
incense, man. We started hard. It was
Yeah.
pretty cool to see. Anyway,
It was awesome.
yeah, so like this brand, like this really nice space that this other church happened to not really be using at the time, because they had outfilled it and were actually meeting in the local high school because they were too big. So we were using their space. It was like upgrade. And then COVID.
Yep.
Shuts down doors.
6-month period. Boom.
Yeah, we had like you said, 6 months in there.
That was such a great time in that building. I loved that.
Oh, it was the perfect situation for our congregation.
We still did Fat Tuesday in that building.
Yeah, that's right.
A week before COVID, I found Father Sean in Chapters, which is a bookshop / coffee shop / ice cream triple business that's downtown in Newberg. He was on his laptop. This was like the weekend before St. Patrick's Day, when Robin Baker, president of GFU, is like, all right, kiddies, go home. He's typing away. I'm like, hey, so like, are we gonna have church on Sunday? He's like, I'm literally writing an email right now to say that we're not. And I remember him and I talking about that. Like, no one's masked up yet at that point. It was all just like newsy stuff that hadn't hit us yet, institutionally. So I remember that interaction with him. He's like, yeah, like this is a thing that's happening.
It was that was kind of a forgotten period right there. Kind of the just beforehand.
Yeah.
There was a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, but it was also a really, really formative time for our church. Because like right around that time, we had just come out of a Christmas season that was really special. We had a Christmas choir for the first time.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Danielle led the choir, and
did Kyler help with that?
No, he was gone by that point.
He was back
He had
home,
he graduated and was headed off to graduate school.
He was already over there, yeah.
Yeah, and there was a lot of like forward movement. We had just started our youth group. We now had a youth group. We were meeting in the secondary building at that place.
Yeah. And you and I were some of the first people to kick that.
We were helping out with that. Abby Buckles was leading that.
Yep.
It was really like there were a lot of things happening. It was moving, and then COVID hits, and like everything gets shut down, and we go fully online, and that like takes our church in a completely different trajectory. And
then the church became probably the most like accommodating church in all of Newberg for the entirety of COVID, plus however long Oregon wanted to keep
for
things.
Not for the first like 3 months. For the first 3 months ish, like we were almost entirely online.
Everybody would have been. Like,
right? Yeah.
Everybody would have done that, because it's like, we don't know. And then summer hits, it's like, okay, now it's time to see who decides to start,
Yeah, maybe it was less than that.
First.
Maybe it was more like 2 months. Like when it was like, well, what was it? How many weeks was it originally to stop the spread? 2 weeks to stop the spread, 4 weeks, 6 weeks to stop the spread. It was we kind of rolled with it. But yeah, like you said, eventually we were one of the first churches to be like, hey, we are going to meet because we have this thing called communion that we're really supposed to be doing. So let's meet in a park.
Yeah.
And we found a park to meet in, and we just went with it.
Yeah.
And I think we were one of the few churches that was actually doing that. And even when they started like partially opening things up, like we still were meeting outside so that we could max out our capacity.
And space people out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that, oddly enough, like what initially felt like was going to just like crush this fledgling church, ended up actually probably being the thing that opened it to more people than it maybe would have been before.
There's no way to know how it would have been otherwise, just because of like there was a big sort with everything, with church, with where people ended up living, with people's jobs, with the remote class of society and the in-person class of society, the essential workers and the non-essential workers. That just disrupted everything. It's so hard to say how that would have been otherwise, but it certainly did allow for a lot of new families to come in. At this point, my family has already moved to Michigan. So like before I want to say a few more things.
When did you head out?
Well, so I want to say a few more things about like the coming into the Anglican tradition via Church of the Vine before I talk about Michigan.
Yeah.
So recall everything I said some time ago about my childhood. I'm growing up in the 2010s. Under the novelty of social media apps, of, Black Lives Matter, under all these things that are grabbing the attention of the youngest people at the highest rate in the most uninformed ways. So you start to see all these conversations, in the political sphere and in the academic sphere about trigger warnings and sensitive content and the word trauma, and all of these things start to get heightened in discussion about all of these chaotic things. And then compare that with a kind of sort of fundy social background in my homeschool world, in my Baptist world. Like on paper, if it wasn't for some key individuals like my mom, I was probably a recipe for, a very emotionally dysregulated, immature, like I'm going to claim as much, victim status as I possibly can type of young person. A deconstruction, hardcore deconstruction. But that never happened. And I think part of that is I've never not believed in God. I've just never had a problem with believing in God. I've never had a problem with that. I believe that there's so much that life can't live without. There's so much things that happen in the world that it's impossible that there isn't a God behind all that. It can't have come from nowhere. And then, Jesus is like the most compelling person ever. And so there's that. So I from an intellectual perspective, I never had a problem with that. But I didn't deconstruct. Like I didn't, I wasn't around. It really matters who your friends are. I wasn't around kids who were going crazy with that. It wasn't. It was college college was the first time I was really getting to know some friends who were not not in a good place. Actually deconstructing, throwing baby Jesus out with the bathwater, the whole 9 yards. And they were usually very open, very deep people who just kind of couldn't stop themselves in their pursuit of getting those answers in their life. I didn't know where that pursuit came from for them. I didn't have it. I always wondered during my time in the honors program if that was like a flaw in me. Which is a funny thing to say out loud.
You weren't deconstructing, so there's something
Well,
wrong
no,
with you.
like the same personality that sees so much more things in our readings than I did, or that I feel like I could put words to, is some of the same personalities that also just see too many things and other things that make them neurotic. Now, that's not always true for everybody, but more often than not, those were the personalities that were the ones that had a hard time. And, the proximity to Portland and, the different pockets at Fox who probably aided and abetted in the falling away of these people probably had something to do with that. But, like, a lot of kids, like, I had come from similar, worse, not as worse of a family background as some of these other people, and they just were struggling so much. And I had a lot of empathy for them. And I was really trying to have healthy boundaries there. I still had these reminiscent patterns in me from middle school where, the still trying to hope that the bully stops bullying me and softens up to me and we can be friends. Uh, that part of me is still inside of me, but I do a much better job at self-preservation with that now and identifying who those like tetrad characters are now, to use a Jordan Peterson term, because I knew them in college and they're still like that. So the I would come home to my mom and my brothers, and I'm like, I can't, like, why are my friends so distraught? And I I started to realize that I had it pretty good in the sense that I was still able to see my family during the week and live at home for my first 2 years of college. And I don't know if it would have been that easy for me had, like the rest of my peers, I had moved away from my family from any length away from them to be at school and them not be around. Um, that was a really great thing. And then when my family did move to Michigan and I was doing my own thing junior and senior year, friend group was already built in. That was great. I really enjoyed that independence at that time, and the timing was good for that. But like, I do look back on my experience and I do wonder, like, why didn't I like do stupid stuff? Like, why didn't I go crazy? I think part of it is just my temperament. Like, that's just not really going to happen. Um, and the friends I had, but I was like, I didn't know so many people my age, allegedly Christians were like so emotionally, mentally distraught at times. And, by God's grace, I've seen some of them get out of that and they healed and were able to find that meaning and the purpose in the life they were looking for. And for some of them, it's been through this BLT journey. It's been through becoming Catholic. It's been through becoming Orthodox. It's been through becoming Anglican.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something I hope we can dive deeper into as
Yeah.
well, because like I see it too. This a really like kind of something that you mentioned earlier, and something that probably those who are watching, any of you are well aware of, is that like the Northwest
Yeah.
has some pretty wild deconstructionist stories,
Yep.
and some pretty like big names on the mega church scene where like things have just fallen apart, and I think that really affected a lot of people. And I think that there's a really interesting discussion to be had about the way that that has influenced kind of people moving away from certain circles of the church,
Yes.
particularly in the Northwest, where other areas of the country may be seeing like massive moving away from some of these more mainline things.
Sure.
The Northwest is almost this weird microcosm where a lot of kind of the more like a lot of the kind of Protestant / non-denominational circles are actually the ones struggling pretty heavily.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of distrust in those communities, and a lot of people actually moving towards more authority heavy and more kind of structured environments, which like is wild in itself, and kind of worthy of diving into. And man, we both need to kind of do a little bit of like a stats exploration to see if there's actually anything to that. Like,
Yeah.
because like what we've seen and what we've experienced seems like you said, there's just been so much deconstruction, particularly in the Northwest, and so many people that I grew up kind of admiring in our region and in our world, and in my circles,
Yeah.
kind of did that story, and I'm really surprised, like you said, that I myself didn't do that.
Yeah.
And like, what's different
What's different
there?
about me? Here,
Yeah,
well, here's the main thing, I think. Uh, we're not in the alphabet community. There really, I think, is a sexual identity component for a lot of what we're talking about, because culturally in the Northwest, it's just so do whatever you want with that, right? And the, endorse the full lifestyle, full send, just go for it. I mean, the West Coast has always been on the edge of whatever that is, right? Culturally speaking. That's not to that I don't think that explains all of it though. Like there are some outliers. I'm really interested in the outliers, but like yeah,
yeah.
like
There's a good point to that. I mean, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but like when I was in high school,
yeah.
one of my youth pastors, or one of my youth interns, uh, kind of right after finishing up his internship, um,
Oh,
came
no,
out
you did.
as gay, and very publicly so, and like did a whole like public display of it, and kind of talked about it, and did a whole like interview and things, and like it was pretty wild. But like that was really shocking to a lot of young people in our community, myself included, and really destabilizing. As kind of he started talking about his really wild change of self, and a lot of what we thought we knew as this person completely changed.
Hmm.
And like when you get that in a community, when like identity starts to just like bounce around, yeah, I think that really does destabilize your own faith to some degree. It's like, well, this person that has taught me and trained me and disciplined me in so many different good ways and good things, is now completely changing who they are.
Hmm.
Like, how do I know that what they initially shared with me is actually what I need, and or is actually what is good and right and true? And like I definitely did a lot of that, like thinking like, wow, I really valued the things that this person spoke into my life and helped me grow in spiritually, and now like we're on completely different trajectories and belief systems at this point in a matter of months.
You're disappointed
um,
with authority.
yeah.
Yep.
And yet here I am, and I'm like, I like authority is where it's at. So like I wow.
Yeah, so this is perfect timing to talk about this. So, what I'm about to say. So, Uh, your youth pastor, their strategy of I'm gonna be like loud and proud and own this. This is how I'm gonna really like justify this. So I was in a communications, like an upperclassman communications class on social media, fall of 2019, one of the best classes I ever took, um, where we examined different, like the literature on um, how social media expression could essentially be explained by um, theories in the ac- academic literature on communication, like the this method is exemplified here when they do this. You know,
I
it's
think I took. Yeah, sorry. What class was that again?
this is Social Media 300 with Shannon Scott.
Yeah, no, I didn't take that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took like the second level communications class, and I don't remember what that one
Yeah,
was.
no,
But
he
yeah,
only offered
go
this in the
ahead. Go ahead.
fall and once a year. So our big assignment at the end, and he broke this down over like a 2 month period, which was great. We had to pick an artifact, which could just be literally anything we found on any kind of social media, a post, a message, a tweet, a screenshot, a video, it didn't matter. Um, Make that the subject of a paper, talk about the artifact as part one of the paper, middle part of the paper. Um, from what you've learned about communication theory, explain something that's in the artifact that's significant uh, and how it demonstrates one out of these billion communication theories you can pull from, and then integrate like part three of the paper is explaining like how this expression of that does that and is unique. So um, while my family is on the road in a Penske box truck, and our Toyota Sienna van, we're driving across the country moving to Michigan. I'm checking Instagram and I see that Joshua Harris is this picture of him standing in front of this beautiful lake in Canada, somewhere within an hour of Vancouver, BC. You can't see his face. He's standing, hands on his hips, looking out at the beautiful lake, and the picture's from behind, taking it. And the caption: "My heart is full of gratitude. I wish you could see all the messages people sent me after the announcement of my divorce. They are expressions of love, though they are saddened or even strongly disapprove of the decision. I am learning that no group has the market cornered on grace. This week I've received grace from Christians, atheists, evangelicals, ex-evangelicals, there's a fun term that was coming up at the time, straight people, LGBTQ people, and everybody in between. Of course, there have also been strong words of rebuke from religious people. While not always pleasant, I know they are seeking to love me. There have also been spiteful, hateful comments that angered and hurt me. The information that was left out of our announcement is that I have undergone a massive shift in regard to my faith in Jesus. The popular phrase for this is deconstruction. The biblical phrase is falling away. By all the measurements that I have for defining a Christian, I am not a Christian. Many people tell me that there is a different way to practice faith, and I want to remain open to this, but I'm not there now. Martin Luther.
Man, I think I remember you actually sending this to me,
Oh, I probably sent it
and
to you. Maybe
I,
I
re- I
didn't.
remember exactly where I am, or sorry, where I
Oh,
was.
where were you?
Like I was in my apartment. I was actually, I had just finished brushing my teeth, and you sent me this, and I
Wow.
just sat there in the bathroom reading this, going, "Whoa,
There's
like
more.
this is my childhood." But sorry,
Yeah,
go
yeah, no,
ahead.
for real. I don't. Martin Luther said that the entire life of believers should be repentance. There's beauty in that sentiment, regardless of your view of God. But that depends on that changes what you're repenting from, though, depending on your view of God. Um, I have lived in repentance for the past several years, repenting of my self-righteousness, my fear-based approach to life, the teaching of my books, my views of women in the church, and my approach to parenting, to name a few. But I specifically want to add to this list now. To the LGBTQ plus community, I want to say that I'm sorry for the views that I taught in my books and as a pastor regarding sexuality. I regret standing against marriage equality, for not affirming you and your place in the church, and for any ways that my writing and speaking contributed to a culture of exclusion and bigotry. I hope you can forgive me. To my Christian friends, I am grateful for your prayers. Don't take it personally if I don't immediately return calls. I cannot join in your mourning. I do not view this moment negatively. I feel very much alive and awake and surprisingly hopeful. And then this little turn at the end. I believe with my sister Julian, as in Julian of Norwich,
Mm-hmm.
that all shall be well and all manner of things shall be well. And that was the caption to his post, where he's looking very happy in the summer, doing something in my paper. Personal branding. That was the communication theory I focused on. And I basically said, this is what personal branding is in the context of social media. This is how Joshua is doing some serious personal branding here. And
Mm-hmm.
how using Instagram, using the photo, using this caption, his statement, the way he made it, and
Using
how it's going to be
using his
received.
own using his own previous branding, right?
He
Even
couldn't have
using
done
like
it in
references
this
to his own
way.
books.
Yes, he couldn't have succeeded in this way had he not done it through the uh, tool of personal branding. That's essentially my argument in the paper is like the effect would have been totally different had he not done it this way, which is like, that doesn't really sound like a thesis statement. It's kind of obvious, but whatever. It worked for the class. So, and I talked in my paper just a little bit about the homeschooling milieu that I grew up in. You might remember this when I say it, Brent. In my research for this paper, I did a little more reading on the Harrises and the Harris family. So there were like three or four like big pillars of homeschooling along with the Harrises. One was Michael Ferris, who founded the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, HSLDA. His daughter founded the NCFCA, which is that speech and debate circle
Yep,
jerk that
very
we
familiar.
were talking about. We have friends who did NCFCA. I still meet people,
I
in the
was I
wild.
was in the NCFCA for a very short time.
Yeah. Um, and then there was a woman whose name I don't remember. I wrote in the paper. And then there was this other guy who also was kind of in the legal defense camp of defending homeschooling, but he was a science professor at Oregon State University. Um, Dr. Brian Ray.
Hmm.
I was reading about this guy and I saw a picture
Not
of
ring a
him.
bell.
I saw a picture of him and I was like, no way. I was in an ultimate frisbee group in Salem that was ran by their family,
Wow.
and he was at games. I have played ultimate frisbee with this man.
Guys, when we tell you this is a small crew, there you go. There you have it.
I'm doing the research for the paper. I'm like, no freaking way. Like, whoa, what kind of a like microcosm was I in, and I didn't even know it under my very nose. And I thank my mom for protecting me from some of that. Um, but I'm like, dang, I was actually like in in the like core movement of a thing, or like near people who were, and I like couldn't appreciate how nascent it was. And that these were like the people who hadn't really, got to really feel the consequences of it yet. So I'm like, dang. So this was a very like fun paper to write, like really fun paper to write. I had friends at George Fox who actually had gone to the churches that the Harrises had founded in the Portland area, and they were like, yeah, it's a cult. Like, it's just straight up a cult. I actually had a friend uh, who was in that same social media class as me, who grew up in that uh, particular um, church group of churches the Harris started in Portland, um, and she's totally in the alphabet community now. Totally deconstructed, super smart, super articulate, super bright, um, in the calm speech and debate world, and then yeah, just whoop, you know,
Well,
total break.
I think what's interesting about this too is that like deconstruction has multiple levels.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of what I saw in my circles and in the circles kind of more broadly around the Northwest are like not full deconstructions, kind of what Harris is kind of talking about there. He's in a way, he's like, I don't consider myself Christian, but right, there's a big kind of a but there, like still kind of, but not. My youth pastor, basically what he did, or youth intern, I should say, is he said, "Hey, I'm still fully Christian, but I'm now gay." And in fact, I'm now going to be openly advocating and preaching on and teaching about how these two things can be in line together.
The flashpoint
And
issue.
and like what was interesting about it is it was actually really, really early in these conversations, right? From like a church standpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, the churches were just starting to deal with this, except that it really, where it was more hitting kids at this time was in the schools. So like in high schools, you were getting a lot more of that gay lesbian discussion. Not so much the other letters, right? This is pre kind of the big LGBT,
the plus,
like major change of all of a sudden all these other things getting added and brought into the spectrum.
The blueprints for the intersections of intersectionality square had only gotten so far. The construction team had only just finished the roundabout and the four-way stop, but then they needed to add this block, and they weren't there yet.
So yeah, you started like really. What was really interesting is early on, there was this surprising push for kind of the church to open its doors to the gay and lesbian community.
Yep.
And
do you really
all of a sudden,
don't?
Yeah, and all of a sudden, a lot of these people kind of coming out of the woodwork, supposedly having been living behind closed doors, and we're now
we typically call those closed doors closets.
Yes. So that is an interesting aspect in itself, in that there wasn't so much a like big name people weren't like coming out and saying like God doesn't exist. I now know that he doesn't exist because XYZ.
Yeah.
It was a lot more of it was the identity crisis. It's like, I am now realizing how God made me. I am now realizing actually how things actually work, and I'm now completely reframing my identity and my way that I view Christ to fit that.
Yeah.
And I think that was actually really interesting for people, because it really began to open eyes, I think, for a lot of Christians to realize so much of faith and like the way that faith was viewed in the last 20 years, particularly in kind of a lot of mainline Protestant and non-denominational worlds, was very self-identity focused.
Yes.
Your relationship with Jesus, your personal relationship with Jesus.
Who knew that would be the prereq for this?
Well, and that's kind of, I think, where we got to where we were and where we are, is this feeling of, it is my walk with God. And if it's all focused on on like your frame of reference,
it's unfalsifiable.
Then, or like your frame of reference, like anytime your frame of reference changes, everything else does too. Like there's nothing. So, I mean, like, for example, the biggest argument that my youth pastor would bring out was, it's like, well, this is how God made me. I can't be any other way. And why would God ask me to live a different way? And I mean, that's all built within that frame of my relationship with Christ is a personal, direct relationship with Christ. And if that's being impeded in some way, then I need to reframe so that it works.
Yeah.
And so like I'm suffering right now with these things. I have a desire for this, and it's keeping me from having a normal relationship with Christ. So if I just realign my relationship with Christ, because I'm at the center of this situation, and I just have to reorient the way that Christ views me. It's like, well, I mean, you can do that if if you are the focal point and all you have to do is mold things around you, like that's kind of the idea there. And I think a lot of people started to realize that that's what people were doing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden authority seemed like it was missing. It's like, I need something outside of me telling me and helping me see and have a clear lens for the world. Yes. Otherwise, I'm changing whim to whim to whim. Like everyone I see around me is changing. Like I don't have any grounding. I need grounding.
Enter the BLT.
Enter the BLT.
Is that? Are we basically asserting that the primary cause for people's trajectories up into these traditions that have bigger authority claims from what the church has to say about stuff is due to this authority gap and the over-individualistic Protestantism that led all the way to I can be Christian and be openly gay, trans, whatever you want?
I don't know if that'll be other people's stories. In fact, I think there's going to be a lot of other people that are going to have very different stories. I know from myself, like authority was a lot. And actually in my first year out of college, actually it started my junior year of college, which is like the same time when I started with Church of the Vine.
Yeah.
Okay, roundabout here. I took that year an agrarian philosophy class.
Oh my gosh, you have to talk about this class.
Yeah.
Please go.
Wild class. Really, I mean, simultaneously, one of the most formative classes I've ever taken, while also being one of the most useless classes I've ever taken. And I mean, you try to understand that. That's up to you.
That's not an offense to your professor.
That is not an offense to my professor whatsoever, because like I start off this by saying one of the most formative classes of my time at Fox.
Yeah.
Just as like a base perspective, the final for this class was a sheep slaughtering, in which we then cooked up the sheep in a stew. We did the whole process. It was great, and also really kind of mildly cultish, but like. I mean, I explained it at the beginning, like simultaneously, most formative, simultaneous, like, and at the same time, what am I doing here? Anyway, I mean, the whole concept of this class, right, is kind of reframing the way that we see agriculture and kind of looking at the philosophical lens of tending and caring for the environment and for the land. Very Northwester like class. Like this is the hipster Northwester environmental framework class. Lots of Wendell Berry, yes. But anyway, one of the terms that I kept returning to in this class, and that like I just kept running into all around myself, was this idea of groundedness, of being grounded, being planted in something, and recognizing that you can't flourish, you can't live life well if you don't have a solid grounding, a solid nourishing foundation to build and grow out of. Really flowery. You get my really flowery language there for an actually really profound idea, and that I think is actually a core, or you might say at the root of this whole situation, which is like you need healthy authority. You need grounded, healthy authority or footing that you can root into that allows you to be able to see the world well, to be able to live in the world well. And those particular years really helped me kind of do that for myself. Like that from like 2017 on, kind of when Church of the Vine really began to hit its stride. I mean, literally the name itself kind of like brings up that whole concept. I mean, it takes you back to the passage in John, right? I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I remain in you, right, then you will bear much fruit.
Yep.
I mean, that's it right there. Like Christ sets up this concept of authority. Like you need to abide with that which is good. And if you're not abiding with it, if you're not growing in it, you're left fruitless. Now you got me going. You got me rolling.
Have you ever connected that Bishop Todd came from the Vineyard Church background?
Yeah, like we talked about this. Actually, when he was that? Yeah, there was a conversation. I don't know if you and I had it or if it was at Church of the Vine, but anyway, we kind of relished in that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, even Newberg, right?
Yeah.
The city of Newberg, its catchphrase is a good place to grow.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, it was everywhere around me. That idea of groundedness, and that really framed the way that I have kind of seen the last 10 years or so of my life. Yeah.
Right. So like pre-COVID, I'm like realizing where I came from in my very unique Christian subculture context, and how that makes me even more happy and excited that I'm in the Anglican tradition. Because it's like, man, I bet none of those Hanyaks would be getting into this. Like, this predates all of them. This, I really felt like I was leaving an island whose history was very short, and then moving to another continent, And then COVID hits, and my family had moved to Michigan right before that. And of course, we had Anglican on the brain, so we were looking if there was an Anglican church in the town we moved to, and there was.
This Trinity?
Holy Trinity Anglican
Holy
Parish.
Trinity, yeah.
So if it Church of the Vine walked, so Holy Trinity could run. Like in terms of my family's comfortability and immersion with Holy Trinity. We couldn't have warmed up as easily to Holy Trinity if it wasn't for our time at Church of the Vine. Because
you needed the gateway drug a little bit.
I needed the gateway drug. Because Holy Trinity Anglican Parish, we read from the 1928 prayer book. We have an organ. We have lots of wonderful 4-part harmony music. We have some chanting. We have vestments. We have stained glass. We have a narthex. We have a nave. We got words, man.
Which reminds me, big update for Church of the Vine. Yeah,
I'm just announced live right now.
They just announced on Easter our new location.
And
we are going to FLC, the Family Life Church in Newberg.
Okay, I don't remember where that was in Newberg or what it looks like. but I remember the name.
You'll have to look it up. But
Man, okay.
yeah, big changes. So we will also be receiving some of those things in the very near future.
Hey.
Rather than meeting in a very a-religious kind of
You're in a cultural center.
empty cultural center, which does have on its walls land acknowledgements. We'll be moving to a very different location.
Have you ever thought it's funny that Shehalem sounds really close to Shalom?
It is interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Family Life Church, Newberg, Oregon. Do I remember what this is? Oh, it's like on that side of town. Interesting. Well, yeah, it's a church. It's a real space. You'll finally get to have a real space again.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be there in June. Well, no, but the movement isn't happening until after I'm visiting.
July.
Okay. It'll have to be another time. Wonderful, wonderful. It's great that you guys have an actual church to worship in now. That's wonderful. So Holy Trinity, that church was the building is beautiful. It was a group of ex-Episcopalians who did not like what was happening with the Episcopal Church, and so they wanted to break off and be this more theologically conservative branch of Episcopals.
Ever the Protestant move.
Ever the Protestant move. And then 1990 is when the church was built. So when it comes to the exodus of Episcopals in reaction to them being super gay, trans, woke, whatever, like they're on the early end of that. So like, it's funny how, I'm growing up in this early Christian homeschool context, and now I'm a part of this church that was on the like super early end of departure, being the portent of things to come, right? With the ACNA, and that was 20 years later, right? So because the ACNA wasn't around till 2009. I mean, it was like Cana stuff, whatever beforehand. I don't know what that's like, but so we are in the Diocese of the Living Word. My bishop is Bishop Julian Dobbs.
Versus the Diocese of the Dead Word.
The Dead Word, bro.
That's our diocese. No, just it's got to make sure it's the living word,
Yeah. Tell me how you really feel about C4.
No. That's not what I meant. That's not where. Cut that up. No.
No, just kidding. Totally kidding.
Yeah.
No, that's funny. No, I love my bishop. My bishop's awesome. You know how on Wikipedia you have to have like 3 sources that say something in order for it to be in a Wikipedia article about somebody? Yeah. Someone made this happen. I know who it is, but I don't know how he did it. We were able to get his Wikipedia article to call him the based bishop, which is just it's kind of cringe, but okay, I'm down with it. So Holy Trinity had the rector left the Episcopal Church, which is still standing in our town. I don't know if anyone darkens its door per se. It's real tiny right there in downtown. And took a bunch of people with him, and then he was the rector of that church for 10, 20, 25 years, 25 plus years. And then it was our next rector, who served in that position for about 6 years, was also the chaplain of the college in our town, and so he could never really be a full-time priest, and it was really hard. He was stretched super thin. His wife started having children, so he had to step down. He couldn't be two men in 2 different places full time. And then we hired the church's 3rd rector, and he just finished his tenure at our church and took a different opportunity, endorsed by the bishop. He's like, I think this is a good decision. it's a really cool opportunity. So he and his wife have now gone there, but he was a full-time rector and really got to grow the church in a lot of ways that were not as possible before. We just have really enjoyed our time there so far. There's really nothing else like it for hours of driving in any direction. Like our diocese is mostly geographical, but we have our closest churches are in like Detroit, Lansing, Grand Rapids. Well, no, those are in different dioceses. I don't know. South Bend is a sister parish. I know that. But there's one in Indianapolis that I've gone to a few times. My buddy Mark is the deacon there. But they meet in a Boy Scout lodge. So like I feel blessed that we have a gorgeous church that's ours, is where we meet. So many churches in the ACNA are what Redeemed Consumer would call like strip mall Pizza Hut churches.
Yep.
And he kind of likes to dunk on that. Is the ACNA a bit of a storm shelter for disaffected Christians from other places that are looking for something more meaty, something more authoritative? Perhaps, but like obviously there's people who are staying in it and they're not using it as a bus stop, knowingly or unknowingly.
I know a lot of people who did, right?
At Church of the Vine,
It
yes,
became very much of a bus stop.
yes, um,
So, I mean, and hopefully we'll get to talk to some of those people.
yeah,
It'll be interesting. There's just so much that we get to dive into. I don't know when these videos will come out and what order we'll put them out in, but
sure,
I mean, just thinking like this is our first recording that we've done. Like these two videos
yeah,
here of my history, your history.
yeah,
It'll be interesting to see how this develops. Hopefully we'll get to talk with a number of different people in our own lives, and then also a few kind of more in the broader kind of community of the BLT
yeah,
in the Northwest and in maybe even in the Midwest where you're at.
yeah,
We're getting to hear a number of different perspectives. And who knows where this journey will take us.
yeah.
This big liturgical transition, big liturgical 3 story. Grant, I like thinking about kind of our stories and our journeys. If you had to kind of like bring it down to a single sentence thing, why are you still where you are
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the Anglican Church? What brought you there? Like 1 or 2 sentences, go.
I can still retain the like evangelical bones in my spiritual body from my upbringing in the Anglican tradition, but I'm it's not just me and Jesus anymore. It's a very like I like it for its ecclesiality, which like I should translate that for people who don't want that word and don't like that word because they don't know what it means. I like saying the same things every week because I'm the one who changes and God never changes. I need to be continually reminded of God's promises and the same confession of sin each week and the same retelling of the Lord's Supper every communion, every Sunday, and the same prayers that we offer for the general categories of our life we need prayer for every week. Um, I need that constant and that litmus test. Otherwise, I then have to be the arbiter of knowing where I stand with that. Um, at least that's how I felt in other traditions of church that I've been in. I don't, the difference between, the Catholics here is that I'm not like taking everything from one man, the Pope, no matter what I think, right? And some Catholics will probably get after me for oversimplifying it like that, but whatever. Um, I'm having a mutual engagement process where Christ's humility is still ever present and wooing me into relationship with him, not unlike that same evangelistic message that I was brought up in a Baptist context. Anglicanism retains that while saying that it's always been this way. The Protestants have done this from the beginning. Technically, the Catholics are too. They just got these other things going on. This is the most ecumenical thing I've been a part of. So the one-word sentence is it's it's the most ecumenical tradition for me as a Christian, and it gives me the option to it gives me the most room for charity for other people and for other Christians from other traditions. I think that's why I'm still that's my main reason for why I'm in it. Other than, of course, that it's a family thing. It's where my friends are, like, all the other reasons people go do the same things they do every week, right? But what is the super abundant, like, what's the meaning be above that? It's it helps me be the most charitable Christian I can be and holds me accountable in a way that supersedes my own self-arbitration. There you go.
Yeah. For me, it's twofold. Um, like if I'm having to rationalize it, I'd say it is, as I was speaking before, it's the authority thing. The Lord has brought a clear idea of authority in my life, that in many ways the Church of the Vine and the Anglican tradition has revitalized, along with my walk here in at teaching at the school that I'm at, which is actually really cool. However, if I were actually just saying it plainly, I mean, I am here and I remain here in an Anglican tradition um, because of God and because of how He led me here, um, and in many ways because of an answered prayer.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like I can rationalize it, but that's really at its core. I wasn't here by choice in kind of an odd way, and
Same for me.
I already kind of told that story. So yeah, I would say that's where it's at for me, is an answer to prayer.
Yep, that's excellent. Yeah, the I've never been around more Catholics than my time here in Southern Michigan after college. And I think being an Anglican has made it possible for me to have as deep a friendship as I have with certain Catholic friends of mine. Um, yeah, it's it's good. It's good for friendliness. But like,
Anglicanism,
yeah, but like not
like
at the but like it doesn't dumb things down, and it's not seeker sensitive, and it's not necessarily trying to do this cultural engagement strategy of, like, there's no liberation theology. There's, we're not making these moves like that. It's just like
Some.
well, I'm speaking for my church, yeah. And then again, you could view it as a blessing and a curse that there's enough the variety like that within the ACNA, right? And I do want to clarify, I'm not going to an Anglo-Catholic church. You might think I was hinting at that based on all of my descriptions being smells and bells. It's decidedly classically Protestant.
ACNA, yeah, it's there is a pretty wide mixture of low church, high church environments amid the ACNA more broadly.
Yeah.
And like the stories that we're currently telling right now are very embedded in an Anglican tradition. We both can quickly acknowledge that our experience of the Orthodox and of the Catholic sides of this story are somewhat limited. Like we have a lot of friends. We have a lot of friends who are in those environments, but we ourselves have not taken a deep dive.
Nope.
So we are really looking forward to having those conversations.
You and I, neither of us had a Catholic crisis. Neither of us really flirted with that. You and I are very.
I had a very, very brief flirting with the concept of the Orthodox Church.
Okay.
But it was very brief. I still kind of describe myself as like if it came down to a non-denominational megachurch and an Orthodox church, I mean Orthodox church every day. But if there's other options, like I don't think I'm any longer in a situation where like I would pick the Orthodox church.
Another reason
I
why
don't know it'd be, but man, this is a weird conversation to have.
My reason for being Anglican, like my anti-reason for not being Catholic or Orthodox, like I'm not these two things by being Anglican. I was having a conversation with an Orthodox friend about this. I'm too American. There's so much about America and Protestantism that is so intertwined that you don't realize until you consider the foreignness of the Orthodox tradition and the Catholic tradition outside of America.
Yeah, it does take you out of the culture a little bit.
Yeah, and I was just like, always
a little bit. I guess I'd say a lottle bit.
Lottle.
A lottle bit.
Ladle rotten hut.
Mm-hmm. Like all of that aside, I mean, I could come up with a number of reasons, like post reasons, but I mean, like I said, it's just like this is where the Lord put me.
Yeah.
Like that's like I didn't will a choice to say no to all of these other directions.
Right.
Like there's never really been a circumstance where I'm like, what if I go become Orthodox? No, I don't want to become Orthodox. Or what? Like I didn't like sit down and like weigh out all the different possibilities and which way made the most sense. I like the Lord led me to where I am, and I'm happy. I'm happy trusting that this journey that I'm on is worth my time.
And we didn't join the Anglican tradition because of YouTube.
No, actually, my mild obsession with the YouTube corners of the universe came post that. But yeah,
unlike other converts these days, who seem to just be obsessed with a few channels and they're like, oh wait, this is it for me. And if that's genuine, sure, go for it. But no, we had an in-person grounded transition.
We're gonna have our own branding now.
Yeah,
we're gonna have like a copied version of Grant being like grounded.
Someone's gonna do
like
AI outline of my face.
Oh, great! I love it.
Yeah, we'll get some like Timberline boots looking cartoonish. Just say grounded.
Shout out to this little corner of the universe on YouTube. Uh, we are pretty diehard fans,
Yep.
and hopefully are now entering that conversation. But what can you say? It's the power of the algorithm. So
I listen to Paul Vanderklay's videos to and from work about half the days of the week. So it's good stuff. The glossary, the common language is really helpful. I mean, and maybe BLT will be added to that glossary now. We'll see. I am going to Midwestuary in August in Chicago. I bought my tickets. I have a gift for Paul that you know about that I got.
yes, I
I'm going to
do.
give him at Midwestuary that I will reveal later. But sneak peek for future conversation, which this will, even if this is released out of order, our conversation with this person will not happen before this episode. I happen to be sitting in the hall of a college that has a uh, event board with a ton of posters of different lectures going on, and guess who's on the list of a lecture happening literally tomorrow? Our own Dr. Abigail Favali. A panel discussion, women, work, and family. Look at that.
Someone we both had classes with at Fox.
And I
Yeah.
unfortunately am not going to be able to go to that panel tomorrow because I'll be at work.
Yeah. And an amazing story of her own. So actually, there's a number of people who probably even know who she is and have probably watched videos on YouTube of her being interviewed.
She's been on Pints with Aquinas. So
yeah.
There you go. This has been
good. This has been really good. I'm sure we could just keep going and going and going.
Yep. Chomp chomp on the BLT sandwich.
Speaking of chomp chomp, I actually need to eat.
You need to have dinner. It's dinner time for you. Go see your family.
Yeah, we're 3 hours apart. I don't know why we even tried to do this together. What are we thinking?
Well, this is what every episode is going to be like. We're going to have to get used to this. So
yeah, I have to trade it off here.
Here I go. Stop recording.